Thyroid issues are everywhere, but most people are still being misdiagnosed. Why? Because the way we test thyroid function is completely backwards. It's broken. If you've been told your thyroid is normal, but you still feel wiped out, brain fogged, anxious, gaining weight, or just off, you're not fine. And your labs, they might actually be missing something extremely important, because there's a massive disconnect in thyroid care where the symptoms are very real, but the standard labs say everything's okay. And that gap is leaving millions of people stuck, suffering, and searching for answers. But before we get into it, hit the subscribe button, guys, so you don't miss any of the weekly videos we're sharing here, especially if you care about root cause healing, of thriving. All right, let's dive in. It all starts with one test, TSH. That's thyroid stimulating hormone. It's the go-to conventional test that's ran, right? And the reason so many people are getting incomplete answers, here's the truth. Testing TSH alone gives you one clue, okay, but just one clue about a complex system. That's like checking your gas gauge and thinking you inspected the whole engine. So in this video, I'll break down exactly what TSH tells you and what it doesn't tell you, and why that so-called normal range might be the biggest reason you still feel awful. First things first, what is TSH really? As I said before, it stands for thyroid stimulating hormone, and it's produced by your pituitary gland, not your thyroid. Your brain. Pituitary's in your brain. So if you learn nothing else, it's that. So think of it as a messenger. The pituitary gland is in the brain. Its job is to tell your thyroid to produce hormones, specifically T3 and T4. When your thyroid is underperforming, TSH goes up. It's inversely proportional. When it's overactive, when the thyroid is overactive, TSH goes down. Pretty simple in theory, which is why conventional doctors love it as a first-line test. And here's the thing. If your TSH is high, they'll say you're hypo or low thyroid. If it's low, they'll say you're hyperthyroid or overactive thyroid. And if it's in range, you're fine, quote unquote fine, case closed. But that's where people start slipping through the cracks, because that normal range they're using, it's not based on what's optimal. It's based on a bell curve, just a statistical average of everyone who got tested at that lab. And that reference range may vary from lab to lab. And guess who gets tested the most? People who don't feel very well, which means we're defining normal based on a population that's already unwell. And that's why in functional medicine, we don't just settle for normal or average. We aim for optimal. Just because something's common doesn't necessarily make it normal. We're looking at optimal, not average. For example, in conventional medicine, a TSH is between 0.4 to 4.0. This is considered normal. In functional medicine, we've seen that people actually feel their best when TSH is typically between 0.5, and 2.0, a much tighter window. Why does that matter? Because it's the difference between being brushed off and being heard. The difference between dragging yourself through the day and finally feeling like yourself again. And let me tell you, I can't tell you how many times I've heard this, countless times. My labs came back normal, but I still feel crappy. Almost every time. They were only tested for TSH. They were only looked at simple, superficial markers on a lab. Maybe T4, maybe that's it, TSH, T4. But very rarely was T3, total T3 and free T3 even in the mix. Thyroid antibodies rarely tested. But if you're serious about figuring out what's really going on in your body, you need to go way beyond just TSH. Because your thyroid isn't a one-switch system. It's a network. And when one piece is off, it affects potentially everything else. Metabolism, energy, mood, sleep, digestion, even your brain. So instead of guessing, we test comprehensively. Here's a look at the full panel I run for my telehealth patients and have for the past 15 plus years, and why each one of them really matters. Total T4, total T3. These tests tell us how much of your hormone your thyroid is actually producing in total. But they don't tell us what's actually active on a cellular level, what's usable by the body. That's free T4 and free T3. These tests show how much hormone is actually available for your body to use. You can produce plenty, but if you can't access it, it's like having money in a locked safe. Then we have something called reverse T3 or RT3. This is like a proverbial brake pedal, if you will. Your body converts T4 into reverse T3 when it's under stress, inflamed, or dealing with chronic illness. Too much of this braking system, your thyroid might be working, but your cells aren't listening. There's too much reverse T3 or RT3. Okay, now let's talk about T3 uptake. This helps us understand how well T3 is being absorbed and transported through your system. And lastly, I touched on it a little bit earlier, thyroid peroxidase antibodies and thyroglobulin antibodies, or TPO and TGA antibodies. These reveal whether your immune system is attacking your thyroid, like in Hashimoto's, the most common cause actually in the West of hypothyroidism or low thyroid is an autoimmune disease. Hashimoto's or autoimmune thyroiditis. And yes, these are all standard conventional labs. They're just rarely ordered altogether. And without them, you're flying blind because we're not just asking, is your thyroid producing hormones? We're asking, is your body converting those hormones properly? Is your immune system attacking your thyroid, interfering with your thyroid hormone production? Is chronic stress, gut dysfunction, environmental toxin exposure messing with your hormone signaling? So what happens when something is off? In the conventional model, if just one number, usually TSH, is out of range, the standard response is medication, right? It's thyroid replacement hormones like levothyroxine, Synthroid. And look, sometimes that's completely appropriate. But in most cases, that's just managing symptoms. It's like one piece of the puzzle of many other variables. It's not asking, conventional medicine is not asking why the thyroid is underperforming in the first place. It's not a medication deficiency. Because here's the part most doctors don't tell you. Up to 90% of hypothyroidism, low thyroid cases, are actually autoimmune. It's not just a tired thyroid. It's your immune system attacking your thyroid. That's Hashimoto's disease. And then there's Graves' disease, which is autoimmune thyroid problems, and it creates a hyperactive or overactive thyroid. And we measure another antibody called thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin, or TSI. Anyways, back to Hashimoto's. It's the most common, and it's not largely looked at because the training in the standard model of care is to diagnose a disease and match it with the corresponding pharmaceutical drug. So if your immune system is launching a slow daily assault on your thyroid, adding more hormones without addressing the root cause, that's like mopping the floor while the faucet's still running. We have to ask a better question. Why is the immune system reacting this way in the first place? And what's triggering the attack? That's the million-dollar question. Because if we don't ask what's behind the autoimmune reaction, all we're doing is chasing symptoms, making numbers look better on a lab as far as hormones go, but not dealing with why we had the problem in the first place. In functional medicine, we go digging. And here's what we consistently find hiding behind thyroid dysfunction: chronic stress and cortisol imbalance. Long-term chronic stress throws your immune system and your hormones out of rhythm. High cortisol can block thyroid hormone conversion, and low cortisol can wreck your energy. Next, nutrient deficiencies. Your thyroid can't function without raw materials, substrates, things like low selenium, zinc, iron, iodine, vitamin B12, vitamin D. You'll feel it when you have those nutrient deficiencies. Next up, gut dysfunction. Things like leaky gut, SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, bacterial dysbiosis or imbalances. When your gut lining is compromised, proteins leak into the bloodstream, the immune system flips out, and often mistakes your thyroid for the enemy. That's sort of the seminal effect that researchers are exploring, is what's triggering autoimmunity. And then there's toxin exposure. PFAS, or forever chemicals, plastics, pesticides, mold, heavy metals. Our environment is sadly filled with thyroid disrupting chemicals. These toxins can mimic your hormones or block receptor sites altogether. Then there's genetic predisposition. Yes, genetics can set the stage, but your environment pulls the trigger. Another thing that we look at clinically for our telehealth patients is unresolved past trauma or nervous system imbalances, nervous system dysregulation. Your immune system listens to your nervous system. If you've been stuck in survival mode, that fight or flight, freeze, fawn response, past trauma, burnout, chronic stress, it can disrupt every single level of function in your body. And lastly, liver and detox overload. If your liver isn't converting T4 and T3 effectively, you might technically be producing hormones, but not actually using them. In other words, it's not just about your thyroid. It's about how your entire system is functioning or not functioning. Your body's not broken. It's responding to stress, to the environment, to imbalance. And the symptoms, they're signals, not mistakes. If you're watching this and thinking, okay, this sounds like me, don't wait for another doctor's visit to feel dismissed, medically gaslit. Let's start getting you some real answers right now. Take my free thyroid quiz. It's quick, it's simple. It could reveal what your thyroid's actually been trying to tell you all along. I'll drop the link in the description so you can get started right after this video. Now, here's why this matters to everybody. We live in a world that's obsessed with what to eat, when to eat, and how to exercise. But if your thyroid is out of balance, none of that works like it's supposed to, because this small but mighty gland doesn't just control your metabolism, it touches nearly every system in your body: your digestion, your mood, your energy levels, your hormones, even your mental clarity and your mental health. So if you've been told your thyroid is quote unquote normal, but deep down, intuitively, you know something is off, trust yourself. You know your body. Stop guessing, stop settling, and let's start getting you real answers. Take the thyroid quiz. It might be the first real step towards finally feeling better.